What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of Ben Builds with Joe and our F4D-1 Skyray by Tamiya. Today we're going to go ahead and move forward here on the aircraft, and I'm hoping to go ahead and get this thing into primer. We do have to take care of a couple of seams, such as the intakes and of course the leading edges. We do have a little bit of work here on the bottom side of the aircraft with the nose and the fuselage join right there. The cockpit looks great, but we do have to go ahead and mask off the canopies and get those attached down, paint the inside railings of that as well, and then maybe work a little bit on some extra parts like the landing gears, maybe string up some of the brake lines. So we do have a lot left to do, but I think we are moving forward and I'm pretty excited to see how this goes. Last episode we worked here on the wing extensions. Those are ready to go ahead and be painted and eventually installed, so that is excellent. And of course we did a little bit of work there on the rear tail, going ahead and cutting off the top of the rudder, and I think that's going to be neat to go ahead and pose that off to the side, so that should be pretty cool. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into our very first time lapse. I want to go ahead and take care of more of our seams, go ahead and get some stuff sanded, get some stuff filed down, of course do a little bit of cleanup and see how this goes. So into that first time lapse, guys, let's go ahead and get this party started. Alright everybody, so we are back and that has gone over beautifully. Most of the seams are looking really nice, very smooth. So we're going to go ahead and move over to the Ordnance. I want to go ahead and start assembling some of the drop tanks and whatnot. Now we're going to only focus on the drop tanks, the center navigation pod, and maybe the Sidewinder missiles and launchers. I'm not really sure if I want to put on the rocket pods because I don't really see a lot of those in my references for my particular unit. So I'm not really too concerned about that just yet. Also, I've noticed that the drop tanks have raised panel lines and some sort of raised detail on the sides of the actual drop tank itself. And I don't really know if that's accurate, but I thought what we'd go ahead and do is glue these together, build the right and left drop tanks, and also build the center navigation pod. Then come back and maybe sand down some of the raised panel lines. And I'm thinking of sanding down that raised oval mark there on the side. There's actually 4 of them, 2 on each side of each of the tanks. I'm not really sure what those do, but I'm not sure if they really show up on the actual aircraft. I'm thinking about actually going ahead and replacing those using one of my ovalized punches to go ahead and push out new pieces of side detailing. Then I can just go ahead and glue them down, replace the existing molded in details, and then just sand them down to kind of fair them in a little bit. I don't really think they were that prominent on the real drop tanks, so I don't really want to make them that prominent here. But I also want to go ahead and finish off the rest of the landing gears, get those assembled, and of course the wheels, and see what kind of detail we can go ahead and eventually add in to the landing gears themselves. So a lot of work here to be done, but I want to go ahead and focus on the Ordnance, get the landing gears built up, and see how the wheels come together, and move on from there. Let's keep it going. Alright everybody, so we are back and we're going to go ahead and switch our attention over to some fine detailing, and I want to go ahead and add in some of the brake lines here on the landing gears. Now I've seen from my references we have two brake lines that come one out of the caliper and one out of the main gear right above the caliper, and they kind of snake their way around straight up the top of it and then into the bay itself, where they will eventually just kind of go off to wherever. Most of that will be covered so you won't really see where they terminate, but you do see them quite prominently on a lot of the pictures that I have here in my references. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of 0.3mm solder. We're going to open up one hole here in the back of the caliper. We're going to include one of those pieces of solder and kind of loop it gently around. And then we'll go ahead and add in one more piece of solder here right above that little strut area, and then loop that around right next to the other brake cable. You can see from the references they are quite prominent, so I think this is going to be a pretty good move to make. Plus, I think this is fairly close to scale, so I'm happy about that. We can zoom in here and you can see what I'm going for. All I need to do is go ahead and just secure that down with a little bit of super glue, and then we'll just kind of wrap it around the center leg here on the landing gear, and we're just going to hold it here at the top and make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. Then we can add in one more piece of solder and I think we'll be good to go for this one particular gear. Again, there's lots of wires and piping and all that stuff, but most of it you're not really going to see, but you will see stuff here on the landing gear leg itself, so that's why I've decided to go ahead and add in those brake cables. This worked out really well for my F9 F8P photo Cougar. Like this aircraft, the Cougar had very prominent brake lines, so this again is going to be really fun to do, and it'll add a little bit of extra spice to a very plain part here on the aircraft. We can also drop a little bit of super glue here and then string in the next wire. Again, I don't really know what this would be, but I'm assuming it's another one of these hydraulic cables. So again, a little bit of super glue here, nothing fancy. Let that cure up, then we'll go ahead and just wrap that around, running parallel with the other brake line, and I think we'll be good to go. Eventually, we'll go ahead and test fit those into the aircraft's wheel wells, and we'll see where those lines go. I'm going to keep them a little bit longer for right now so that I can go ahead and maybe stretch them back, glue them to the sidewalls or something, and give it a little bit more interest. So I think this is going to be really awesome. We're going to add a little bit of super glue to make sure they don't go anywhere, and then we'll go ahead and move on from here. So yeah, looking good. And of course, once we have that one done, we're going to switch over to the other leg and do the exact same thing. I won't bore you with the very detailed look at that because you've already seen it there on the other gear. Same process, quick hole right in the back of the caliper. Go ahead and glue in one piece of 0.3mm solder, wrap it around, have a nice gentle curve. Then we'll tack it into the gear, wrap it around the main center leg, and then we'll add in one more piece, do the exact same process, and we're good to go. Now, while those parts are going ahead and curing off camera, let's go ahead and jump over and start masking our canopy. Now, this shouldn't be that difficult to do. Originally, I was going to go ahead and buy some pre-cut masks, but I decided I didn't want to spend any extra money. Then I thought I would go ahead and cut some on my vinyl cutter, but I didn't really want to fool around with trying to scale them down. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead and grab my old canopy off of my original Skyray. We're going to grab some very thin painter's tape, and we're just going to use the painted canopy as a template and go ahead and make some masks. Very simple stuff here. The nice thing about using the painted canopy is that we have a very clear demarcation line between the clear part and what would be painted. Otherwise, it's a real soft line and it's very hard to kind of differentiate where the paint would start and where the glass would stop. We'll just go ahead and use what we have here. Let's go ahead and jump into that last time lapse, mask up the canopies, go ahead and get those glued down. We're going to start painting those canopy rails and then eventually get this thing primed and ready to go for next episode. We're almost there, guys. Let's keep it rolling. Alright everybody, so we are back, and as you can see, the Skyray is all nicely primed. Went ahead and used gray Steinerez primer, and I have a little bit of work to do here extra on the nose. Tiny bit of a seam poking through right there. On the undersurface, I have a little bit of some work to do again on the undersurface of the nose, but honestly, it's not too bad. Just a little bit of sanding, maybe that should be enough, and we can hit it with some primer and call it a day. So other than the front nose, everything else looks pretty good. And I think this is going to set us up for a very good episode next time, where we can come back, do a little bit of pre-shade, go ahead and overcoat with our basic colors, and then we can come back and hopefully just finish up a couple of areas, paint on some details, and I think we'll be ready for gloss coat and decals. So I think this is moving right along, and I'm super happy with how this is turning out. What a great little model, guys. Also, I do have to do a little bit of work here on the very tail. There's one little area on each side that I might want to go ahead and sand down just a tiny bit, but then we can go ahead and paint on those wing extensions and just glue them into place. Not too bad. We also went ahead and primed the weapon pylons. Those are looking okay. Need to do a little bit of assembly on a few of those, but we are right on the money with those. And also we need to go ahead and figure out the front leading edge wing slats. Not really sure what to do with those, whether we tuck them in or we extend them out. We also primed up the landing gears. Those look great. I left the brake lines a little bit longer to go ahead and play around with those up inside the wheel bay. We have the wing extensions all nicely primed as well. I think we might need to sand them just a tiny bit to make sure that they fit up inside those areas, but for the most part, they are looking good. So I'm liking that. And of course the rudder and the tail. And that is it, guys. I am super happy with how this has turned out. I love getting to this stage where we have the aircraft in primer. We can go ahead and next episode, come on back, play around with pre-shade, coloring, maybe do a little bit of detail painting as well. I'm not really sure where this is going to go from here, but I'm really digging this kid. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to drop on by Joe's channel, check out his Skyray. It is looking aces, and we'll see you back here on the next episode of Ben Builds with Joe and our 1/48 scale F4D-1 Skyray. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you soon.